a short explanation of the two basic types of perspective. I think I did some last week because somebody asked. Was it you?
You were doing the two.
Right. If you are looking at, and this is kind of the easiest thing to do, is railroad tracks from above. This is what you see. You see the rails and the crossbars. That's looking straight down on it. But as it goes back in perspective, your two parallel lines here, the rails, are going to get the illusion of converging on a single vanishing point on the horizon. As I mentioned earlier, your horizon is always your eye level, whether you're up here or down here, and it's going to change how you're looking at things. If I'm looking straight down on this table, it's a rectangle. But as I look at it here, these two sides, if I drew a line continuing to my horizon, they would eventually converge. Does that make sense? Just two, okay, good. So the same with the railroad tracks. So here's the front track, and here's the rails. This is my horizon, and that's my eye level, whether I'm standing up. So if I went down, it would happen faster. And they're parallel, so they're going back to a single, I want red rails, okay. Vanishing point, that's my VP, my vanishing point.
I didn't think it would be that emphasized.
Well, it's short.
Well, they're depending again, if you're up here or down, like if I were down closer, like sitting on the ground instead of standing on the ground, and the closest rail was here, it would go back a lot faster. And you can use this when you're drawing to do roadways and stuff, and it's going to help pull the viewer back into the distance.
Do a road.
Well, this is a road, but with lines on it.
Road.
Okay, well, let me you just want to jump ahead. Let me get through the basics.
Road.
And again, there's kind of a mathematical thing of getting back as these rails, not rails, what are these crossbars, whatever, back in the distance. Like again, you can dissect it. No, it looks like I've kind of forgotten. You know, if you did this all the way back. But the first one we're gonna eyeball says the next rail is here. Wait, is that I'm gonna skip all of that. This is gonna get complex. Sorry, you just need the basics. So these rails, they're gonna get consistently closer as you go back in space. Okay, so and all the way back. The same if you had telephone poles beside it. Right, so you've got a telephone pole, we're standing here, that's gonna be taller than us. There's your telephone pole. Isn't it beautiful?
Yes.
And in that reality, looking at them sideways, they're the same distance apart, their crossbars are at the same distance. If we drew an imaginary line from the bases across, an imaginary line connecting the tops of those lines would converge on the same vanishing point here, because this is 1 point perspective. Okay.
Could you tell me what 1 point perspective means again?
1 point means that all lines that are parallel in reality converge on a single vanishing point. And that is right here. So if these telephone lines are running right beside your railroad tracks, this line is parallel to this line. So these two lines are parallel. And the base of the telephone I'm color coding, I need to remember to color code here. The base of the pole of the telephone pole is parallel, and the top of that is parallel. So the railroad tracks are here, and the telephone poles are like a cube, you know, like the side of a cube. They're parallel. So all those parallel lines are gonna come to this vanishing point.
Okay.
So there's the base and the top, the base and the top, the base and the top. And you can also do
Whoa.
the crossbars. Okay, this crossbar is gonna be, whoops, you know, here, and here, and here,
Yeah,
and here.
it's so cool. It really feels like you're.
It just very simply and quickly, you've
Yeah.
got,
Mhm.
So cool.
questions? Keep going, I'm gonna go on. This also works if you are inside something. So we're in this room, and I look back there. This wall is around me. I'm gonna get rid of this. So here I'm standing, here's my head. Boop. And the wall behind me is around me. Let me bring that down further, let me see. Sorry. Can I do it? Can I do it? That's it. Not quite. Okay. So I'm standing here. Here's the floor. Here's one wall. Here's the other wall. See, my hand does not work naturally in that direction. Right? So there I am. And I'm looking out at the distant wall, which also comes down, the floor comes down further.
Oh, okay.
So that's the back wall with the windows in it. But now I know that where this wall and the ceiling meet, there's a line. I'm inside a cube now. The floor and the wall meet, and that meets. And if I connected all of these would go back to a single vanishing point that is at my eye level. So this is gonna help you on your house. If you're inside and there are some windows here, I'm just gonna sketch in the vertical. These also, from the top of this window and the bottom of this window, are gonna converge. Because, right, they're parallel to the top of the ceiling and stuff like that. So now I know exactly what angle all of these tops and bottoms of the window are, because I just fit it inside that 1-point perspective cube. Yeah.
I just wanted to ask you a question, might be stupid. I'm trying to figure out, like, okay, because I do have a problem with angles. I see you angled those windows at the top. How come you didn't angle them at the bottom? You know what I mean? Why wouldn't they go angled?
These right here?
Yes.
Because they're higher than my point of view.
Okay.
See, this is where I'm standing, and these are high windows. If they were lower windows, which normally they would be, right? So we'll bring those down in here somewhere. Now, the base of those need to follow. I find the closest corner of one of them, and it's gonna follow to that vanishing point. And here's the base of that. Before, it was just above my horizon line, so that's why it didn't look like it did that very much. If there's a table in this room, here's a table, here's the front of the table, and we know the table fits in a cube, right? So we make the cube going back to that same vanishing point, the base, the 2 feet of the table, if we drew an imaginary line there, That's the base of that cube. Going back. This one's going back. The top's going back to that vanishing point. And each of these lines is gonna be a little different. But we draw the cube in first. I'm not gonna go through the whole aspect of a cube here. But there's that table. Now I can remove those lines, those imaginary lines, so you can see the table in there. And you're creating this great illusion of a three-dimensional space.
Yeah,
Kind of making sense?
yes.
That's the,
Except the window, I still don't, the bottom of the windows, when you made them taller, that, and, so the windows are a bit confusing for me.
all right.
I understand the top of the windows, get that, it's the
Right.
bottom that.
Well, when you
really
come
bugs
down
me.
to the base of it, you know the windows, the side of the window comes down here somewhere,
Mhm.
right? And we're not sure exactly where.
Oh, so it's gotta be.
So if I find the closest corner and I get an idea of where that comes in relationship to other things that are around it,
Mhm.
that is going to give me where any line parallel to this line is, once I know where it's going on the vanishing point, that's how it gives me the base of that.
Okay.
Does that
That helps.
clarify? You would use that if you're looking down on something like a house or from a house it would be from the outside, but if you're looking straight on at the end of a cube, that's when you would get that 1-point perspective. So for you, if you're looking straight on, these two lines and these two lines will go back to a single vanishing point. If you can't find the vanishing point or something, at least make them parallel, but slightly converging as they go away from you. So the same with you folks. This is like as if you're straight on to the cube, which we don't do that often, right? Those lines, those lines. Usually we're looking at a cube at an angle. And that's the next one.
Okay, so the top of that one, then, from my perspective here, it looks like it's wider on this end and goes the vanishing point that way. Like it looks like there's less of the top on
Right.
left than on
And
yours
one way
on the
you know
right.
which way it's gonna vanish to is that this is the closest corner to you.
Okay.
If this is the closest corner to you, then as these lines, these two parallel lines go off, they slightly converge. And the same that way, they would slightly converge off that way.
Okay.
Anything that's parallel to this. So all 4 of these lines go that way, all 4 of these lines, the short end, go the other way. That's 2 points.
Mm.
Which we're gonna do now. This is, I mean, if this is new, it's an introductory thing. It takes some time for us as we learn just about seeing shadows and things. It takes a little time because it's a new way of thinking often. Straight edge. If you can hold it still, close enough. Now we're gonna do 2-point perspective. This is the most common. Because again, we rarely sit directly onto something where it's usually at an angle. If in our still lives, we're looking down on the cube, we know what to do. We did this before. We start with the corner that's closest to us. I can't turn this so everybody's got a corner close to them. And we imagine a line that's perpendicular to that. Actually, I don't really need that line, but I'm gonna put it in. And then we're going to estimate the angle that each of these baselines go off from that base point. dun, 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 you look at your cube, you go like, okay, I'm gonna say this is about that angle, and it goes off to the distance over here somewhere, and then we're looking at this one. Maybe it goes off a little faster. Straight edges do help. Right. And as they do that, and we have that imaginary going off, all of a sudden, it's going to intersect with our horizon at some point. What that does is give us the angle of the top, every other side. Any side that's parallel to this one will end up over in this vanishing point. And why it's 2 points is there's 1 point on the horizon here and 1 point on the horizon there. I'm going to put this down. So that top is now going to go off here somewhere and intersect.
That's interesting.
If that didn't slide around, it would intersect off on that vanishing point. Which got moved up because this slides around. It's a little better. So in reality, these two lines are parallel to each other. So we want them at least parallel, slightly converging. If you want to think the perspective, they will converge on that same vanishing point.
So that was what was wrong with my cubes when we were doing the cubes
Yeah,
initially.
because it's something about our natural thing is like, oh, we're looking at the top of it, so we put them out like this where they should be going back and converging.
Interesting. Okay.
The same with the other side. It's going off that way. There's my vanishing point there. So this is going to go off in that direction. So you can see, this is not the best drawing thing, obviously. See how they're kind of starting to come together? If we drew them all the way out, they would converge.
So what does the top left do? So the top line that's on the left side,
This.
yes, how does it come toward the vanishing point on the right?
It doesn't, that one has nothing to do with the right.
No, I just mean when you're making the cube, the rest of the top of the cube.
Right, I'm not there yet, slow down.
Oh, sorry. I thought you were done.
So if you do it in these steps, like start with that vertical corner closest to you, find the two angles of the base, take those out to your horizon line, that's your vanishing point, step number one. Then you can take any line parallel to this, and right now we need these two top ones, out to that vanishing point. There's that top front line that's facing you. How do we find the back ones? We need to know how far over this right side is from this, right?
Yeah.
Is it a long cube? Is it a short cube? Where does that line go? The best way to measure it is we have a unit of measure, which is the height of the cube. And we're going to say, all right, you know, look at my cube. That's about 1 1/4 off to this side. Now, I'm not going to measure at the angle for this. I'm going to measure horizontally.
Okay.
That's important. So there's 1. There's 1 and about 1/4. Do you see how I did that? Anyone not?
Will you do it again? Yeah, please.
Yes.
Thank you.
I used the height of this as my unit of measure, 1. And I look at the cube and I'm like, okay, the distance from this line to this back vertical line is approximately 1 1/4 of this, if I tilted it this way. So there's my 1 distance, and there's about 1/4 of that.
Okay.
That's going to tell me how far away, need another color, from here, that is, there's my one height, and there's the quarter. And by knowing how far away this is now I draw another vertical line, because the vertical lines have to stay
And it's
vertical.
parallel, yeah, okay.
We're not changing the vertical lines.
Yeah. Huh. Cool.
And then you do the same over here. Okay, I'm gonna just say it's about half the distance. So I go horizontally again. There's my unit of measure. I'm going horizontally, about half, should be right about there, should be, and again, vertical, that side of the cube. Now I have two full sides.
Yeah.
I got the angles down, I have the two full sides.
Very cool.
Don't kill your brain over this.
No, it's cool.
Now, we're all set because we have the straight edge. We know that that first back line, this is parallel to this, is parallel to that back line, right, of the cube?
Yeah.
So that back line has to also go to that same vanishing point. So it's going to start at the corner that we know is the right corner, because we've just measured that all out. And it's going from that corner to wherever that vanishing point is. See how it's going off there? Doop, 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 somewhere. And then the same on this side. Here's this, and this are parallel, so that back side needs to go over to that other horizon line. From that back corner, we know we've established this side. We know where that back corner is. It's going to go that way. Cube in space.
Interesting. Cool.
Questions for everyone?
It's so cool.
What if we're good here? I'm going to keep those two vanishing points. What if we're standing like a house? And we're standing here. So the base of the, no, it wouldn't be right. Wait, is that right? What am I doing? Now I'm going to make it smaller. So we're standing beside the house. Here's that front corner. We again have the imaginary perpendicular line. What is the angle here? What is the angle there? I'm going to make it dramatic. This one goes we're almost straight on, but not quite. So there's the angle to that one. And then we're going to make this one pretty dramatic. This is going off to the back that way. Again, all we have now are the two bases of the front of the house. We know that the top roof line is parallel to this line. It has to go to the same vanishing point. Fades off over that way. And the same with this one, which look how dramatic that's going to go back in space. Right?
Wow.
Now we do the same thing. We measure, here's our unit of measure. How far over is the house? I'm going to say like 1.5 for that front side. Vertical here. Here's the unit of measure. It's about 1/4 to the back side. So I measure, like there's that distance. I want just 1/4 of it away from there. I can erase now my my vanishing point lines. And there's a solid cube of that house.
How do you know you want 1/4 of that?
The reason, because you'll be looking at the house and you'll say, this is my unit of measure. Let me turn it this way. There we go. Here's my unit of measure, right, that high. If looking straight on from where you are, I now use that 1 unit of measure, where does this back corner touch on that 1 unit of measure? I need another hand.
Yeah, you do.
Oh, so it's not the full unit, it's
It's like, here's my unit, and if I'm going to use that, and now I go horizontally to that, where does this line appear to touch on this? Here's my 1 unit. not making
totally
sense.
lost.
This,
No,
no, okay, this is
No,
my
not
unit
that
of
one.
measure, and I just went blank. Okay, so if I already have this,
Yeah.
and I can see, I'm looking at the block, and it's here, I need to take this unit of measure. Now it's this big, it's different size. And if I turn this way, I can see that the distance from this line to this line
Yeah, it's just a snoosh.
is just maybe a quarter of that full, see, that's the full unit of measure. That's only a quarter of the unit of measure where this line comes and intersects that.
You're doing vertical unit of measure and then you're turning it horizontal?
Yeah, because this, you have a unit of measure here,
Mm-hmm.
and you have to measure everything else in accordance with that. So what is the illusion of this unit of measure?
Mm-hmm.
And then as I turn from that line, this way, where does this line appear to touch on that unit of measure? And that gives me an approximation of how far away that should be. No. Or you can just eyeball it. Right, you say, okay, it's not too far, and I know it needs to be really dramatic. Because this angle is going to be dramatic, and then if you draw that back, then you know the top line from this other corner has to intersect at that same vanishing point back there.
Yeah.
And then you just need to know about how big this side is, and you can kind of eyeball that too.
Because you're looking at it at a very steep angle. You're mostly in front of it, but not completely.
Right. Which is how we look at houses quite
Mhm.
often. Then, as I mentioned before, to dissect to find out where the roof is,
Yeah.
usually the peak is over here. You dissect your cube. We did this in another color. This red is fading. So I draw an X in the cube because it's not going to be in the middle of this line, it's got to be in the middle of that cube. So by doing this dissecting thing, this X,
Yeah.
you'll see it's a little closer to this line than to that line. Anyway, then you draw a straight line up. And that's going to give you where the peak of the roof is, and that is totally dry. And then you just connect it. The top of this roof is parallel to that. The
Wow.
peak of the roof,
It's gonna
also it's
vanish.
parallel to this eave, so it's gotta go down to this vanishing point.
Yeah.
I'm gonna exaggerate a little bit.
Yeah.
And anything else? You'll have the video, I hope this helps. So if I have a window here, right, that's gotta go out that way. Whoops, too high. That's gotta go up that way. And any other window is gonna fit
In there.
in those parallel lines. And the top of the door. Because it's,
Yeah. Cool.
it's kind of mathematical, but as long as it's somewhat simply in your mind and you're kind of eyeballing it, that will help. That didn't look like it came out right there. Yeah. Same with the no, I won't do that. The same with the chimney. This line goes back that way. This line goes over to this one. There's your chimney. Because that follows it too. They all just kind of follow down to that vanishing point.
Yeah.
That's probably the most. My top green line here is bad. I hope you realize that.
Yeah.
You know why? Because I didn't use this. Where is it? So a straight edge does help on these type of things, but try not to get too hung up. If you have them approximate, it's gonna help you. It can get, I mean, the mathematics on this can get crazy, so.
It's almost like drafting instead of,
It is drafting. Mechanical drawing.
yeah.
But the understanding of it is gonna help when you're doing a house or something.
Yeah.
Basic understanding. If you have, one more thing. What was that, Sylvia? You had the house. She had a house, and I'm gonna approximate here. And then she had a porch on the front.
Yeah.
Here's the house at the angle, and if you have a porch or something coming out, you just make a second cube and attach it to the house. So you have to get this one down correctly. And then you say, okay, attached here at the front of the house, this is where it's touching the house. That second front cube is touching the house there. That's where it's touching. Now, I need to know that the base of that cube is coming out from the house at the same angle. It's having that same vanishing point that the other one did, right? They're all going off over here. And this baseline is going off to this vanishing point over here. And we're standing in the middle, so now the two tops of that cube, which you're not, so you would be looking at it like halfway here because your eyes are at this level, not looking down in the house anymore. Now I put a secondary cube that's very crooked in front of this house. Where the porch comes out.
Wow.
And then you build around that each step as you go along. But it's taking two shapes and combining them to create something else.
So like on this house,
So on
Yeah.
this house,
you could draw the lines.
this one's actually better, kind of. By the way, can you not see? You don't have that one?
I do.
Yeah. It really goes to the vanishing point.
You have the little shed one?
Yeah,
I have,
that's quite a fireplace.
Let's try this. Do these photos help practicing when you have, I try to find things that are simple and I know about drawing, and oftentimes people just learning will choose too complex an image to work from.
The only thing about that one, it's so dark. I mean, I've
It
been
is.
on photographed houses, and then you can really see the light.
Do you want to do the other one instead?
Okay.
Is that one clearer to see?
Isn't that
I sent this out end of
Yes,
last
I
week.
photographed your houses.
I got it yesterday.
Did I send it
got
again yesterday?
yesterday.
Okay. Because I thought it's probably buried in your email boxes. I do that often. I'll send something out about a week ahead and then again. Especially if it's like a Zoom link or something. People always lose those.
I know.
All right, this is fairly simple. Where's the horizon line on this?
Is it the ground? or
It's
is
the
it-
ground.
Yeah.
It's actually at the ground, right? So our horizon line, we're actually standing off down a little hill, so the horizon line is the edge of the ground that we're seeing.
I'm on the west end of this, on the north
It's a
side
little
of
crooked.
Asheville.
Okay.
No, I'm on the west side of Asheville.
Oh,
Oh,
wow.
you could suggest restaurants.
Well,
It's not
Let's go
working.
down.
What, freak out, I can't hear him back too.
My information.
So this kind of simplifies it a little bit because we're not doing two different angles. If the house were sitting in front of this, we would do different angles. Right, the base angle's going back and the top angle's going back. But on this, it's sitting right on the horizon line.
Yeah.
And the front corner is, missing my red, but this, that's the corner that's closest to us. You taking off, sweetie?
I'm sorry, I have a social security appointment at.
Exciting.
Yeah.
Happy birthday coming up.
Oh, yeah, that's
Because-
right, that's true.
What, my appointment?
No time.
Oh, now it's 11.
You get the video and stuff. Thanks for being in class.
Oh, thank
We do
you,
hope
I
to
love
see
it.
you again.
It's a shame if they're there, because I'm actually finally starting to get what you're talking about. It's starting to click.
Good,
Thanks.
all right,
Bye.
Bye.
thanks. All right, front corner of the house. Boop, goes up there somewhere. Not worried about this back angle or this back angle. Those are already established for us.
Yeah.
Right. So we need to. So anything else, this front corner line becomes our unit of measure, right? Comparing everything else to that. Is that too high? No, that's pretty good. So we're gonna look at the basic cube of the house, right? No, you do it.
No.
So ignoring the roofs, everything else, we're just looking at the cube of the house. It's almost straight on. So our vanishing point is gonna be way over here somewhere. So this angle is very slight. It's not horizontal because it's got to slightly converge way off in the distance there somewhere. And it goes off somewhere that way. So see how if you took these two lines out really far, it'd be out here somewhere.
Yeah.
Now this other angle is faster. It's going from here, and if we drew from that front corner, from this front corner to this back corner, you can see an imaginary angle there, right? You can see that imaginary angle, kind of like this, and that's going off into the distance. Now, this being our unit of measure, I'm going to say the distance from here to find this back edge. There's my 1 unit of measure. It's about halfway. There's 1 unit. It's about halfway. Should be right about here. And vertical. See, this is why by coming back here, I can see if it's vertical or not. When I'm
Yeah,
here,
you're
it
right
gets
there,
totally
it's-
thrown off. And then the same this way. Measuring the unit of measure, about 1.5, 1.5, so somewhere about here should be this other corner of the house. The cube. Ta-da! So now everything else builds around that cube. I need to find the center of this side. Do an X. Where's the center? Now look, if I measure this, you can see 4 inches that way, 4.5. By using that X, you can find the center instead of the middle. The distance here is actually different than that. And you can do the same on this side. I can
Yeah.
get it straight off. That's going to let us know where our peak line is on this side, and also that front dormer on the front is gonna be up in here somewhere. Right?
Yeah.
The roof line is about half the height of the house. I'll just go through, sorry. The height of the house, now that I don't have that. At that angle. This is a little more dramatic because it's getting up further away from us. The angle of this edge of the roof. And then that gives us where that backside is gonna come off. Et cetera, here, this peak steps out. And then you've got another little cube, as we had before, on the front of this house. It sits in behind there, that's kind of tricky, isn't it? Anyway, you would measure this out and you can find, this is, I'm sorry, I'm getting messed up here. Separate cube, there we go, that's the back, that's where it attaches to the house. This is the front. Peak comes out in front. I'm all of a sudden my brain is tired. Your brains must be really tired. Back and the front. There we are. And that fades back to the door where it touches the house. That connects to the roof angle. Whoops, not that angle. Follows that, there it is. Because I looked at this angle right there. And then the same, you know, then you do the parallel lines and stuff to find the windows. It's pretty complex.
Yes.
Okay. I don't want to get totally, any quick questions? And you can see this peak is not going to be exactly over this peak because this one is sitting a little further back from that one and we're looking at it at an angle. We know in reality, if we look straight on at this house, this peak is sitting directly under that peak, but because the house is tilted slightly, it's offset slightly. And those are just some little tricks to help you find those angles a little easier. I'm sorry this other one's so dark.
Mine came out really light. but-
I try to lighten them, and I think I sent you the color ones. Oh, yours came out really nice.
Oh, yeah, that came
Oh,
out
yeah.
very nice.
Because it does, and I do have a diagram, and I'll send you that about lines, and I've color coded the lines. Cabin.
You almost have to trace in that time.
Oh,
Because
yeah.
I did, I fast printed it, which made a huge difference.
So are we to do a still life
Instead
now?
of if we
Yeah,
do
let's-
find-
We're not enamored of buildings.
And this one, to see how this one
Right,
came out,
the
so-
building is, and I know our
So
brains are like, okay,
I
I want.
Yeah.
What I would recommend is doing, you've done one already, one of these other still lifes maybe, to relax a bit?
Funny,
Or do you want me to set up a real still life?
Well, I,
whichever you.
You have
I made
something?
one, yeah. Let's see here.
Trick with the perspective, if you take it one step at a time, like I said, that first corner, the angles they go off, find the vanishing point, connect all parallel lines to that vanishing point. Lines that are parallel to each other. That was your question, Susan. This line, these are parallel.
Yes.
That vanishing point has nothing to do with the these parallel lines.
It's so strange, yeah.
Yeah, they're off on their own trip over here, and these guys are off on their trip over that way.
And that's why my cubes always came out
Because you
this
got
way.
confused as to
Yeah.
where it was going. I do have a couple of videos that explain that stuff in more
Good.
detail too.